Rahaba, Tohoda Rahaba, my heart is thankful to you, Abba. Tohoda Rahaba, Tohoda Rahaba, my heart is thankful to you.
Well, shalom, shalom, everyone. Welcome to Israel, My Delight. Hope you were with us for Hidden Voice of Hadassah, because we're going to kind of dovetail that a little bit, although it's going to be kind of a different topic, but it's going to be dovetailed a little bit in terms of the concept and the principle. So we hope you did watch that, but stay with us here on Israel, My Delight, and because I think you'll get a lot out of this tonight. So. I love the book of Genesis, love the book of Shemot. Shemot, but love the book of Bereshit, Genesis, and the story that goes along with it, where Joseph was sold into slavery and then ended up becoming the second in command of Mitzrayim. The famine was going on, and his brothers came, and he revealed himself to his brothers. They're very short. They're very fine-tuned synopsis. And basically then Joseph said, come, bring my father and everybody that's with him in Canaan, and I'll give him the land of Goshen, the best that Egypt can offer. So there's really some beautiful real estate that was in Goshen, because there was still 5 years left of the famine at that time. And so they got the beautiful Goshen, and Joseph fed his family for those 5 years plus period, the 5 years of the famine, and then they got on their feet and all that kind of stuff, which was awesome. And then 17 years after Yaakov came into Egypt, he died. He blessed his children, and you can read all that. Those are awesome accounts of what was taking place, and the blessing on Ephraim and Manasseh, the right hand on Ephraim, the left hand on Manasseh. Yaakov calling Ephraim and Manasseh his children, not Joseph's children, but his children, like Reuben and Simeon, which was firstborn, secondborn, and gave them a lot of wonderful status. Now, they were born in the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt, with could be an Egyptian wife. There's a lot of stories around that too, which is kind of interesting to explore. We won't do that tonight, but of who the wife of Joseph could have been. But we don't know. But it's interesting, and you can find that on any websites and all that kind of stuff. It's very interesting. Who is that woman potentially? But anyway, one of the biggest questions that I always had was very pretty picture. The question I always had is, okay, so Yaakov got a prophecy, that Abraham got, that his father Yitzhak got, and it was passed down through the father himself, about the inheritance of the land and the sand and sea prophecies and becoming a great nation and all that kind of stuff through your children, and that's where the 12 tribes of Israel came from, through Jacob, from Reuben all the way down to Benjamin, the 12th, with 4 different women, if you will, and so when Jacob died, when after the famine, Jacob did not leave Egypt. He stayed in Egypt, obviously, until his death at 147 years old. So he was in the land for 17 years. And then after that, I think that was Joseph was something like, I don't know, 60 or so. So 50 years after that, roughly 50 years, give or take a year or two, um, Joseph died at 110 years old, you know, and it's interesting because the rest of the tribes and his brothers. So Joseph died, and then soon after that his brothers died, and so there was nobody left that really mainly came from Canaan. Maybe some of the young ones, but there was really nobody left that was in leadership that was not in Goshen. Because I always thought to say, why didn't they leave? Why didn't they go back to the promised land? So I saw this article, and it's not that long, and I'm going to read it to you. It's from the Chabad.org website. It's called The Estate of Goshen by Menachem Feldman. And I'm telling you, I love Jewish Hebrew perspective. I look at it obviously probably differently than they do. I know I do, because I think of it through the lens of Yeshua the Messiah, and kind of how it all kind of plays out that way. So when I saw this, I was thinking, wow, this is interesting. This may be a hint of why they did not go out of Mitzrayim back to Canaan until, because right now we're in Shemot, and in the second Parsha reading in Shemot, and talking about the burdens that they had, and the bondage and the slavery and all the different things that took place in the land of Mitzrayim, and that Moshe was raised up as a deliverer for the children of Israel. Why? Because they cried out to the Father. So, do you have anything to add right now? Or you want to just read the article?
Read it.
All right, let me just read this article. It's called The Estate of Goshen by Menachem Feldman. It says, the final two portions of the book of Genesis leave us with mixed feelings. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh, I think this guy is speaking to me, because I have had mixed feelings with that. So on the one hand, Jacob was finally at peace, and that's true. I mean, his family was reunited, and his son Joseph was the leader of Egypt, the world's superpower. For the first time in decades, Jacob was living in tranquility. Because, if you think about that, Joseph was his favorite and dear to his heart, because he was the firstborn of Rachel, the one he really, truly set apart as his wife, and wanted to, from the beginning, wanted her to be his only wife. But Joseph granted, so he's living in tranquility because Joseph granted Yaakov and his family Egypt's best real estate, the region of Goshen, where they lived a worry-free, peaceful existence. For the first time in decades, Jacob was living in tranquility. So we heard that. And on the other hand, it was a sad story. There was a dark cloud hanging over their tranquil life in the land of Goshen. The children of Israel were heading toward a period of terrible slavery. Now, they didn't know that yet, but there's still, you put yourself in that position, things can happen. The Torah was a carefully selected, the Torah, with a carefully selected Hebrew word, alludes to the complex reality of life in the Goshen region of Mitzrayim, Egypt. The final verse in this week's Torah portion describes the Jewish people thriving. And this is Genesis 47:27. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they acquired property in it, calling about Goshen, and they were prolific and multiplied greatly. The Hebrew word for acquired property is huzu, something like that. I'm pronouncing it probably badly, but which is the word from achuza, which is commonly translated as estate. Our story, in our story, the word is telling us that the Israelites acquired an estate in the land of Goshen. The word achuzah, however, has another meaning as well. I remember Brad Scott of blessed memory used to always talk about, when he used to talk about words mean things, Hebrew words means things, and they're concrete, but they also have two sides.
Mm-hmm.
The positive and the negative. So it's interesting. And this is one of those times where we're seeing a positive side and then also a negative side. So the word achuzah, however, has yet another meaning as well. So it means estate, but now listen to this. It is a word from the word achaz, which means to grasp. Achuzah can also mean that the land grasped the Israelites, that in some way they were trapped by the land. The word veya huzu then has different and opposing meanings. It can mean acquiring an estate, which is a symbol of freedom, or it can mean being grasped by the land, which implies being trapped and enslaved. The two meanings of the word achuzah, estate, and grasped, teach us an eternal message. It is a lesson about what our attitude toward Egypt should be and what our general attitude toward the world we live in should be. So let's look at the solution. This is the solution he's looking at, and I tend to agree with this because this is from the exile point of view. When our soul descends into this world, it enters a foreign land. Wow! Remember what Yeshua said. He said, "You are in this world, but not of this world. You're in this foreign place, but not of this foreign place. You're of a place much higher in the kingdom." When we are exiled from Israel, we are in foreign territory. So that would mean that all of us that are not in the state of Israel, the land of Israel, which was the promise, is in foreign territory. So the purpose of the journey to this foreign territory is to acquire an estate, quote unquote. It is to find and to elevate the sparks of holiness which are in every material object and in every corner of the planet. So we have a part to play. We evaluate the sparks by using physical objects for a meaningful purpose, thus infusing the world with holiness. We can make a difference where we are because of the light we have and the Ruach HaKodesh who is dwelling in us. Getting close. Wherever we find ourselves in the journey of life, we are charged with transforming that place into an estate for holiness, an oasis of spirituality. God sends each of us to exile with a mission. So we're in exile with a mission to find and evaluate the thirsting sparks. And yet there is a danger in the journey. The danger is that instead of elevating the material, we are grasped by it. We don't want to be grasped by anything. That instead of our possessions serving us, we serve our possessions. That reminds me of the rich young ruler. When Yeshua, when he asked Yeshua, "What must I do to enter the kingdom of heaven?" And Yeshua said, "Go and sell everything that you have and give it to the poor and come, follow me." And because he was trapped by or grasped by those possessions, he could not do it, and he went away sad. That instead of our possessions serving us, we serve our possessions. case in point, that instead of enjoying our estate, we are trapped by it. The essence of exile then is achuza, grasped and trapped by the land. Yet achuza, as an estate, also captures the essence of redemption and freedom. We are all in the metaphorical land of Goshen. We may feel that we are enslaved by the lure of the material, that we are trapped by its grip, yet the Torah reminds us that we have the power to free ourselves from its gravitational pull, that the physicality which held us down yesterday can be redeemed by becoming the building blocks of a spiritual edifice, of in a state of holiness. That is awesome. That is awesome because, again, we can redeem the time. That's what the scriptures say. Redeeming the time. It's one of the epistles. I can't remember exactly. Probably maybe Timothy. But we can redeem the time. It doesn't matter what we did, what happened yesterday in that sense. We can change that. We have the power in the Torah, in the power of the Holy Spirit to change that state. So, how does that all apply to us today? In this world, we're in exile unless you're in Israel. But even in Israel, you can be trapped, grasped by the material estate that we have. The distractions that it can be physical, it can be spiritual things, it could be just distractions in our total life. And how does that all apply to us today? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's interesting that in the scriptures it talks about when the children of Israel were going to Mitzrayim. They were going to Mitzrayim, and what transpired there? And I was, looking through the scriptures, and it says, and he said, "I am." This is verse chapter 46, and it's verse 3, and it says, "And he said, this is the Father, I am the Elohim of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Mitzrayim, for I shall make you there into a great nation," which is very interesting. In Mitzrayim, that's where the Father said, "I am going to make you into a great nation," which is very interesting.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's
which is very interesting because I myself am going down with you to Mitzrayim, and I myself shall certainly bring you up again, and let Joseph put his hand on your eyes. And so it's interesting how the things that transpired in Egypt with the children of Israel, not only Joseph's brothers and father, but the other people that were also in Mitzrayim. So there was something that was taking place there. And so this to me, it's very interesting because I'm thinking about the day we're living in right now and how there's some things that are merging. There's some things that are taking place in other countries, if you will, that are merging. They're becoming united. They live in. It's totally out of the understanding of what's going on here. How can these people work together and exist and work together? But it says it right here. It says, "And Yaakov rose up from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel brought their father Yaakov and their little ones and their wives in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to transport him." Now, Pharaoh now is working to get them into Mitzrayim. I mean, this unity that's taking place, this unity. I mean, and it's just, it's like, is it something that is ordained by the Father? Yes, it's ordained by the Father. There's some things that happen in life that the Father ordains, and you stand back and you look at it and you say, how can this be? Where Israel is going to Mitzrayim to receive what? Food and another nation. There's another nation that's being developed. And it's almost like it's saying that the land of Mitzrayim is going to be merged with the land of Israel. Because Israel is coming to Mitzrayim. Joseph, who is from Israel, born in Israel, an Israeli, and yet they're in the land of Mitzrayim. I mean, to me, it sounds like, we divide and conquer regarding land. And we're seeing it even in the day we're living in. We're seeing it that it's happening with, President Trump is uniting with all kinds of countries and everything. And when I say uniting, he's becoming, connected with them and working with them and trying to help the situation that's taking place in other lands.
Yes.
And some people are upset. Why is this man, they're saying, getting so involved with other countries? Why isn't he just focused on the United States of America? But the truth of the matter is, when somebody steps out in faith and they have a heart that wants to unite other countries and bring people into a situation where there can be a form of working together, a form of unity, a form of helping some people who have been stumbling around and not able to make things happen. Joseph made things happen in Mitzrayim. Joseph became a very, very productive. It was almost like like a President Trump making decisions. Like when the food ran out, when they no longer had food, Joseph said, "No problem. We have seed. You can plant the seed yourself, and what you plant will grow, and you can eat from that. We'll give you'll give a portion. We'll give you a portion. You pay for it, and then so there was an understanding of working together to survive, working together to develop. So I just see that, during the and believe me, not everybody has an open mind to say, let's work together. I know we've been enemies in the past. Mitzrayim and Israel were not the best of friends. Let's face it. They had a different mindset. They thought, that they served, Mitzrayim served idolatry, where Israel was serving the creator of heaven and earth. But they merged because of what reason? To preserve life. Preserve life for Mitzrayim and to preserve life for Israel.
Right.
So it shows that there's a season for things to take place. And sometimes seasons that happen, like a season of famine, and let's face it, Israel was in a famine at that point.
That's right.
They didn't have any food, but they went to Mitzrayim where there was food. And who was running Mitzrayim? Joseph. Joseph was running Mitzrayim.
Yay for Joseph.
I know. So, but it reminds me of President Trump and what President Trump is doing. He's trying, he's working with all kinds of people, all kinds of nationalities. I mean, meeting constantly. And he wants to see people want to increase in their understanding of how to be productive. It's like President Trump being like a Joseph, who has the wisdom in order and knows how to be a productive overseer, if you will.
Right. And I'd see you open up to chapter 45 and verse 5. It says, right here, it says, you underlined it, and I loved it. Elohim sent me, this is Joseph talking to his brothers. Elohim sent me before you to preserve life.
That's
what that was the main reason. Now, the father knew because he gave that prophecy that you mentioned to Yaakov. Now, I'm just gonna read that prophecy one more time. That's 46 verse 3, and he said, "I am the Elohim of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Mitzrayim, for I have." Because I'm sure this is interesting, because now this kind of makes us think that Yaakov was a little trepid. What is that word? I don't know what the word is. He was very cautious.
Yes.
About like going to Mitzrayim. He wanted to see Yosef. I mean, but Yosef could have come and seen him. In that sense. But there's no food.
Right.
And so Yaakov was trepidation. What is that word?
Yeah. Concerned.
Yeah, he was concerned about. But the father said to him, "Do not be afraid to go to Mitzrayim, for I shall make you there into a great nation. I myself am going down with you to Mitzrayim, and I myself shall certainly bring you up again, and let Yosef put his hand on your eyes." So it just
even before that, if you read this, it says, "You will dwell in the region of Goshen." Okay. Where you will be near me, okay? You and your children and your grandchildren, your flocks and herds, and all that is yours. And that's Genesis. There it is, Genesis 45:10.
Verse 10, yeah.
Yeah. So, but the bottom line is, see, this is what's very interesting, because people have doubt. People have doubt about certain, for good reason. There's good reason to have doubt about, accepting some type of uniting together, except when it comes to feeding people who are starving. Mitzrayim, I should say Israel was starving, that they did not have any food. They did not have any food in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Jacob said to the brothers, "What are you doing here? Sitting looking at each other. Go down to Mitzrayim and get some food so we can eat." And so it's like there's a reality that says this relationship, our unity, can preserve life. And it means what? It means you're going to have to work with people, and you have to trust in, number one, Joseph. Joseph had to be trusted that he was going to ensure that his brothers they understood that their brothers were shepherds. That was the key. He said to the Pharaoh there, when he asked what are your brothers? And he said, "They're shepherds." When they heard the word shepherd, it changed the whole understanding of their sense of reliability, their sense of service. They're shepherds. They're not here just to take up space. They're shepherds, which means they will actively be involved in the process here. And then the other ones, the ones that were Mitzrayims, the ones that were from Egypt, what did they have to do? They had a different scenario that had to take place. There were things that they had to learn regarding if the food ran out, then they had to learn to take seed, plant the seed, grow the seed. We'll give you the seed, you plant the seed, and you can eat.
Yeah. And then 20% goes back to the Pharaoh.
Right.
What a taxation.
But but the thing is, I mean, that's the way that businesses work, and that's the way that people can, I just see that whole process.
No,
I've never seen it so strongly as
no,
it was with President
agree.
Trump.
I agree, but when I look at Joseph and how he treated the Mitzrites, which was interesting, because he basically took everything they had. Basically, he made them, employees instead of employers.
Yeah.
If you will.
Because you want to eat, you have to work for it, and if things run out, then the resource is seeds. Seed, you plant the seed, and this will bring, and it grows, and you get a crop.
Exactly. So that's interesting. That is interesting. It's interesting too that Goshen in Hebrew actually means drawing near.
Yeah,
which is very interesting. I mean, how that can play.
I think it's. I don't think it's a coincidence.
No, I don't think so either.
I think
but again,
it's
that word, achuza, again, can be translated as a state, or it can be translated as the that word grasp. Did the land grasp them? It's almost like how we talk about. Did you get into a comfort zone? Where it's interesting with going back to Abraham and his father Terah. Terah was called in chapter 11 of Genesis, and he went as far. It says right there that he's. Let me read it. We have a few minutes. We have time. So let me just go back to Genesis 11, and right toward the end. Let me just see. Yeah. So this is. The genealogy of Terah, about Abraham, Avram, Nahor, Haran, and Haran brought forth Lot. Haran died. And let me see, is that where it was? Oh, no, it's right. Where is it? Where is it? I'm sorry. I thought it was at the end, but I didn't think it was at the end. I don't know. I know it's there. And, sorry. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, I knew it was at the end. But I just, 11:31. And Terah took his son Avram and his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Avram's wife, and they went out with them from Kasdim, or the Chaldeans, to go to the land of Canaan. So Terah took his son Avram and daughter-in-law and Lot to go to Canaan. But it says, and they came to Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah came to be 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. So he never made it to Canaan. But as we see in chapter 12, that Abraham was called. So again, looking at that word achuza, which is being trapped or grasped, or a state, which is more comfort, more. Was Abraham in that kind of a state prior to he came? Was in the Ur of the Chaldeans? Was he in that estate type of way? And then he went with his father to Haran, going to Canaan, but he never made it there. And then did Abraham sense? And I think he did sense in his spirit that this lifestyle that his father was doing and the and being in a comfort zone, if you will, was a trap, was being grasped by the land and said no. And then that's when the father spoke to him because he saw Abraham's heart. What are your thoughts on that one?
It's interesting. Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, it definitely probably had some type of division with that. It probably brought about a separation, I would say. But here's another thing, James, which I find to be very interesting. You remember when Moses was in Egypt.
Yes.
And Moses and the other Hebrews were building Egypt for the Egyptians.
Right.
Interesting. This was before the situation with Goshen.
This was after you're talking about Moses?
Yeah.
Yeah, Moses, because Joseph was Goshen.
Yeah, Joseph and the was people, Goshen, yeah.
Yeah, and the people lived in Goshen, and they lived there for many, many, many years. Over 200 years.
So was Moshe after that? Was in Egypt after that? Yeah. So was he in the same place as where Joseph was?
Probably.
See, that's interesting because it says here that not only did living in the land of Goshen set the Hebrews apart from the Egyptians, but it also kept them close to Joseph.
Yeah, I can see that, but don't forget, in after Joseph died and all the brothers, and there was a period of, like, I'll just say, just for sake of it, 200 years later.
200 years later,
that a Pharaoh rose up that knew not Joseph, but it said they filled the land. The Hebrews, they filled the land. So at this point, were they still just in Goshen? Probably most of them were, but they were filled with the land. What does that mean? Is that just and it could be a poetic way of saying there was a lot of them.
Yeah. Because they multiplied.
Yeah. Or were they, not only in Goshen, most of them were in Goshen, but Goshen expanded, if you will. It could be that too. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really say, but the land was filled with them. So where was Moses born? To Aram and Jochebed, and then 3 months later, after because the Pharaoh, who grew up and knew not Joseph, wanted to kill the Hebrew children, the boys.
But it's amazing how the whole thing is. This is what the point I was trying to get. It brought us to Moses as a baby.
Right.
There they were. It was like it went from Joseph, and then it went years later to Moses.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I can see where Goshen was probably very close to where Joseph lived. I don't know where he lived, but he probably and it kept the connection of him to his father and him to his brothers, and to the families that were growing and growing and growing. You can see that because
Ramsey was one of the two grandsons that the Hebrews built for Pharaoh.
Garrison,
yeah.
Not grandsons.
Not grandson. Garrisons, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just the whole. It's just, to me, it's just amazing how this all developed, over the years.
Exactly.
And but is it still amazing too, that this is, we're talking Egypt and Israel,
right?
But now if we look at it from the standpoint of where this is today,
that's Good. I'm glad you said that, because that's what I want to do, is again bring it back to today.
Bring it to today.
And how it applies to us today. I mean, here we are, in the land. We're in the United States. Some may be in Canada. Some may be across the pond, as they say, and in other places, in Africa and whatever. But if we're not in the land of Israel, we're in exile. So what does that mean again? Are we making holy, if you will, or set apart what we have here? Now, we are in this world, but not of this world. We're in this nation, but not of this nation. So are we making a difference in bringing the set apartness, the holiness of the Father? He said, be holy or be set apart as I am set apart. Are we bringing that to this dying world?
Well, the answer to that question is yes. There is a man that is seeing the need for unity, and I believe it's because of the call that is on his life. So in other words,
I see that. We're talking about us though too.
But that's what I'm talking about. But I'm saying that there's always there's always leaders in the situation.
No, absolutely. I
And
agree.
Joseph was a leader.
Mhm.
Joseph definitely had a divine call in his life, and he expedited the unity between Israel and Mitzrayim because of his call. I mean, the Pharaoh used him as a major expediter of food and taking care of Mitzrayim,
Right.
and allowing, if you will, quote unquote, the Israelites, Yaakov and his children, and his grandchildren, and all that came there to Egypt to live. And is it happening today? I believe right now, in the day we're living in, I think that's what's happening. There's a lot of things happening, a lot of division that's taking place, but there's also a lot of unity that's taking place. There's a lot of people that are trying to develop relationships, and it has to do with productivity. It's not just a relationship of kumbaya, let's have a good time together and everything. It's like, let's have a relationship where there can be productivity, there can be financial blessings, there can be trading, there can be trading that takes place, there can be preserving life, there can be all these things that are being manifested. But what does it take? It takes relationship, and it takes the right heart.
It does. It does. Again, it comes to the point of where we are in this world. I mean, are we, because you look again, if the Israelites, after the death of Yaakov and or after the death of Joseph, said, okay, thank you very much, Pharaoh. Thank you all, our friends in Mitzrayim. I know you love us and all that, and we appreciate that. But it's time for us to go back to Canaan, or where we're going to be calling that land Israel, because named after our father. We're really interested in that at this point. So they would have avoided, at least from the Egyptian standpoint, they would have avoided all those challenges that they had, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if that was the case, why didn't they go back? But yet the prophecy to Jacob is saying that, don't be afraid to go down to Mitzrayim. I'm going to make you a great nation there, and I will be there with you in Mitzrayim. So he's going to be with us wherever we go. and in the land of Mitzrayim, in the exile, and I will make you a great nation and bring you back. Didn't say when, but he will bring them back. So I looked at it. It says, our goal is to have an estate of holiness or set apartness, an oasis of spirituality in the places that we live. There may be, and there will be, I shouldn't even say there may be, there will be adversity.
Right.
In that. And does that adversity, create or brings us closer, where again, you look at that word Goshen, meaning to draw near to what? To draw near to the world system or to draw near to the kingdom?
The kingdom.
Yeah. But it was through a lot of adversity that it took place. And I mean, we don't know what happened during those, again, I don't know exactly how many years from the death of Joseph to the Exodus, but, even say 200 years at that point, something like that. And, when most, all that, maybe even more, maybe, 200 and something years. You have the adversity, but does that, so that adversity then obviously created in a sense, a unity with the Hebrews.
Right.
And what did they eventually end up doing? They cried out to the Lord,
right,
for a deliverer.
Right.
Now the Lord gave them a deliverer, but the deliverer was Moshe, who was basically born 3 months old, went to live in the Pharaoh's palace for the next 40 years.
Right.
Until he, but he knew obviously that he was Hebrew, and that's when he, jaunted out to see what the Hebrews were doing, and he saw an Egyptian beating up a Hebrew, and he came out and looked around and then beat up the Egyptian and killed him. And then he came the next day and he saw two Hebrews arguing with one another. And he said, "Why are you arguing with one another?" And they said to him, "Who made you a ruler and judge over us?"
Right.
Are you going to kill us or me like you did the Egyptian? And that's when the light went off in Moshe, and the estate, if you will, became the trap. And the trap that he was going through, and he fled to Midian.
Right.
So that deliverer was not only 40 years in the making, it was 80 years in the making from the time they cried out. When they cried out, a deliverer was born, but it took 80 years for that deliverer to come back to Mitzrayim.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
I know.
And so, we always look at it in our timeline. We always look at things, what's happening in our timeline, and why isn't things happening quicker? Well, it's Father's timeline. Father knows best, right? Father knows best. And it's just, it's interesting how Father knows best. And he has it all down, and he knew that they were going to go to Mitzrayim and go through all they had to go through to be delivered out of Mitzrayim, out of bondage, out of slavery, into the wilderness for 40 years because of murmuring and complaining. So that from the deliverer to going into the land, 120 years. Amazing. He knows where we are. He knows where we are. He knows what's going on. He knows our state, if you will. He knows how we are.
He knows our heart.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. I'm just so excited. I mean, but you mentioned it earlier. Maybe I can't remember when you mentioned it on the Hadassah or even here, but it was with great expectation.
Yes.
Finally, it was the great expectation that they saw, and they had great expectation of being delivered. We are in the land that we're in, whether again it's Massachusetts in the States, whether it's Canada, whether it's England or France or Africa, we are in the state that we're in. The Father knows what's going on.
Yeah, he knows what's going on, but the question is this. There's no doubt that the Father knows what's going on, James.
Right.
The question is,
The most.
do we know what's going on?
Right.
The Father knows,
Mhm.
but the testing comes with the human beings.
Yes.
That's where the testing comes. It's like, it's like the Father says, he's the creator of heaven and earth. He doesn't slumber nor sleep. He's awake all the time. He guards Israel.
That's right.
He guards us all. The question is, individually, do we know what's happening? Do we know what's expected of us?
Good point.
That's the key. I mean,
Very good
everybody
point.
says the Father knows, the Father knows. I know the Father knows everything. There's nothing hidden from him.
Hello.
The question is, do we know what's going on? Do we know what's expected of us? Do we know how we need to repent and change? Do we know that we need to seek his face, seek his kingdom, seek his righteousness, and do what's right in his eyes? The Father, there's no doubt that the Father knows everything. It's what are we doing? How are we living? How are we spending our time? It's really called, are we doing what's right in the eyes of the Father? And see, this is where Joseph played a very, very significant role. Very significant role. He endured. He went through a lot. And he endured right to the point of being the leader, if you will, in Mitzrayim. So, feeding and supporting. And he knew it. He told them right from the beginning when he was a young boy, there's going to be a famine in the land, and I am going to be the one that rescues our family and others regarding the famine. And his brothers, even his father, had a hard time accepting that. But that's what took place. That's what took place. Joseph's purpose manifested. Joseph's purpose manifested, James.
It did. It did big time.
And it's still manifesting.
Yeah, I agree. All right. I don't know. I think that was good. See, what we're reading is a series of journeys in people's lives. Adam and Eve, Noah, Abraham.
But you say people's journeys, okay? These are specific people, right? That the Father ordained.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he did it for whose purpose? For us.
Yeah.
When we came on planet Earth, there's the scriptures that give the whole story of all the people that came on planet Earth and what they did, how they did it, and to give us insight to what is our responsibility.
Exactly.
And that's the key. That's why reading the scriptures is so important. Listening and obeying and guarding his words is so important. Because there's a covenant. There's a covenant that he gave us. And he also gave us his written word. We're without excuse.
Yeah.
So we can say there's all these people. Oh, but we're people. We're here on earth now.
We're people.
Yeah, and we're here on earth right now with a divine purpose.
We're people.
Yes, we're here on earth with a divine purpose. And that to me is what this message is all about, is the divine purpose that the Father gave us.
I am in total agreement with you on that. That is awesome. Yeah, because it is.
We talked about it even before we went on the air. We had a discussion about it earlier today, and we're saying there's so much that is going on, and we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing? How are we?
Why are we here?
Yeah, but are we doing something? Is it our plan or is it his plan? Is it our responsibility to be part of it? You know, I mean, what responsibility do we play?
Good point. We'll think about that.
We'll pray
We
about it.
want you to think about
and
it
we'll
too.
do something. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. If you're watching this on demand, welcome and share these videos. Share this network, lamnetwork.tv. Lamnetwork.tv. Very, very important. Great website to go to. If you haven't gone to it yet, just go to it, and there's a lot of wonderful things. You can submit prayers. We have prayers 6 days a week, from Sunday through Friday, and you can submit the prayers and then update those prayers with praise reports or whatever's going on, and it's awesome. And you have prayer warriors every single day and throughout the week. Because people that join, they pray for the prayer requests, and we have great expectancy that these people will be healed. Yah's will be done in their lives, and so it's a great network. Great. That's how Lamb Network started. It was with prayers, a prayer room, and.
That's our purpose. That's one of our purposes.
That's one of our purposes. So, okay, we're going to get going right now, but
thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. Yes. All right. Don't forget on Shabbat, we do have Torah study among friends at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, you can go to lamnetwork.tv and you can see all the schedule of all the different shows, synopsis of all the shows, what they're about, on-demand shows. Again, submit prayers. You can donate. You can contact. So we really appreciate it. And appreciate Mark and Adina Smith, who put this whole thing together for many, many years. So greatly appreciate their lives and help, allowing us to be part of it. So we're very encouraged. All right. So shalom, everyone.
Shalom alaikum. If you missed today's show, or want to watch it again, or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lamnetwork.tv, where you will find this show and all the other live Lamb show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network.
To possess the land. Toda Rahaba, my heart is thankful to you.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date, progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the lamnetwork.tv website. I'm James O'Hare, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
My heart is thankful to you, Abba.